My contribution to the Hester family Christmas is a saga of storytelling of our family's history begins at the foot of the mighty Kaimai Ranges. Ma told me that the mountains of reminded her of the mountains of Wicklow where she was born. So it was pretty cool for Ma. Dad got a job as a tunneler in the Kaimai Tunnel project in 1970. He had an A-grade explosives ticket, the legal license at the time. Dad's role was to insert the electrical detonators into the sticks of gelignite and then insert them into the holes after drilling into the rock face. Then, boom! That was obviously pre-trained. I visited him at work once and he was inserting electrical detonators into these sticks of gelignite and he dropped one!
Oh my god.
You can probably imagine my sphincter's response to that. In the year before we moved to Maramara, Dad was asked to blow up a massive tree stump out of the ground in Blockhouse Bay. We didn't have diggers in those days, so they used explosives to pop it out of the ground. And that's what Dad said. He said, we're not blowing it up, we're popping it out of the ground. So I got to drill the holes down underneath the stump. Dad put the jelly in and boom, Blockhouse Bay. Awesome fun, obviously. I was instantly hooked on explosives and electricity. My life went on from there. Our family relocated from Avondale to Tamaki Makaurau, where I was born, to the rural paradise of Waikato. After Dad's first day at work, we questioned him on his initial experience in the tunnel face. I gave him an excited, stereotypical 10-year-old's grilling. As you all know with your 10-year-olds. And I remember him saying it's incredibly wet in there. It's literally raining inside the tunnel. There's a temperate climate rainforest on the mountain above the tunnel, so it was no real surprise that the rock was that it was raining in there and the rock was more fractured than they initially expected. We didn't have such great geotechnical analysis in those days as is provided with modern technology, which makes what Pat and Dad did and their achievements infinitely more challenging than what we do today. Respect to you, Pat. Yes, Pat. Well done. So on my second day at school, I was called out of class. Already? And I thought, bullshit! I can't be in trouble already. I've only been here 2 days! And then they told me, we have very worrying news. The tunnel is caved in and your dad's missing. My initial 10-year-old response was, great, it's Dad that's in trouble, not me. Then all hell broke loose. The next 2 days were hell on earth for our beloved mum. And all the women and families whose husbands, brothers and sons were missing. And Dad's former colleagues from Gilbert Hatfield, who he'd worked for here in Auckland, they raced down to Maramara, and they drove a shaft into the cavity at the tunnel face where they hoped there would be a chance of people living there, surviving there. So what did they find? A heap of Irishmen and some tangata whenua. Our family got to celebrate in the middle of an absolute tragedy that cost 4 people's lives. these can be the perverse outcomes of tragedies where some people have a good story and some don't. One of those surviving Irishmen was Patrick Kelly. The cave-in and escape made Pat and Da lifelong friends and comrades. One thing led to another. And Nola and Pat fell in love.
Yeah.
And then that incredible union gave us these 3 beautiful women.
Yes.
Had Pat and Da not survived that event, half the people at this function wouldn't be here today. Think about that just for 1 second. You guys wouldn't be here.
Wouldn't exist.
Dave wouldn't be here. Craig wouldn't be here.
I don't think we would.
For me, that's a really extraordinary detail of that whole dynamic. Okay, now let's get to the fun part. A couple of years after we moved to Matamata, we moved on to 3 acres in Wardville, at the foot of the Kaimais, a couple of kilometres from the tunnel. Da's mates picked him up and dropped him off on the way to and from work. Sometimes they stopped for a brief hui at the Wahara Tavern on the way home.
That's definitely.
Behind the adjacent farm to where we were living was a construction site where they were building the railway line from Wahara main trunk line through to Pat and Da's tunnel and to the port on the other side of the Coromandel in Tauranga. And in those days, industry never worked on a Sunday. It's a bit weird in this day and age because people are working every day, but that was the routine. Then this tranquil Sunday morning, Philip Orr and I came up with a cunning plan. We went down to the construction site. Now, being country boys after a few years, we had those machines going in minutes. 14-year-old we were at this stage. We had a bulldozer, a grader, and a front-end loader. And we moved adolescent-sized mountains. But apparently not from where they wanted them and to where they wanted them. It was a bit ad hoc. Did I mention how much fun we had? We dorked around on these machines for an hour or so, having the time of our adolescent lives, and then our survival skills kicked in, and we scattered and dispersed like adolescent ninjas. Or so we thought anyway. Of course, the village grapevine was ringing and all the neighbours contacting each other, asking what's happening at the site. We weren't home long before I heard a car coming up the driveway, and I looked out to see Constable Webb.
The policeman.
Constable Webb. You know how this is going to go, don't you?
Yep.
Bear with me for a second. One rule the old man had was never do anything. Get caught doing anything. That brings the cops to our door. I was 14 when I broke that rule. Exactly. The olds weren't home when Mr. Webb arrived, luckily, and I opened the door to the law, and the law said, "Here, come with me." As I walked to the police car, I noticed that my cohorts were already in the clink, so to speak. Yeah, rounded up all the usual suspects. He took us into the car, we drove to the railway workings and all the machines that we've been dorking around on, and all our fantastic handiwork, and we were grilled by the cop with only one question. "Did you lot do this?" And of course, we just nodded sheepishly and admitted our guilt. So Constable Webb was judge, jury, and executioner, so to speak. He said, "Right, you lot, get over there and bend down and touch your toes beside the grader, and I'm going to boot you all up the arse." 1970s policing from the police.
Wow.
So I bent down, touched my toes as I was told, and he booted me up the ass, and I lost my balance a little bit, and I whacked my forehead on the grader rim of the wheel on the grader, and got a big scar on my head, like I did to you when you were a little girl, out at the swimming pool. Minor detail. And he was mortified that he had hurt me. You know, he didn't mean to hurt me. It wasn't deliberate. He was absolutely mortified. So then he comforted me, and he was very apologetic. He took us home and dropped us off, and he said, "This incident is now over. You've been punished. I'll inform your parents, and that's the end of the matter." So around dinner time, the phone rang. Ma answered it. As Constable Webb was speaking to her, she looked at me and gave me her death look. All the others will know the kind of look that I'm talking about.
I used to get it too.
Ma answered, and as Constable Webb was speaking to her, she said, "Brendan, Constable Webb for you. Your son is in trouble with the police." The law gave Dar the rundown of the day's events, apologised for denting my head. And Dar, on the phone whilst eyeballing me, replied to the cop, "If you catch those little brats doing that again, boot them up the arse and send them home to me, and I'll do the same again." And then he said, "It looks like Kev's been punished enough, so we'll leave it at that." Not long after that, I bumped into the law again, as chance would have it. In Maramara, he pulled me over on my Kawasaki 100, and he asked to see my driver's license, which I had set in Te Aroha, because we were so far out at Wardville, we were actually in Te Aroha County, not Maramara, so I didn't do it with him. And he said, "Show me your driver's license." And I showed him, and he said, "It's only a week on. I've seen you driving around for at least a year. And I've seen you sometimes with a rifle on your back in a sling. And I was too busy to stop and talk to you. And now I stop you, and you have a 1-week-old license. How does that work?"
Oh God.
I told a fib to the police. I'm admitting it to you. I said, "Oh, it must have been my brother-in-law."
Oh, no.
You wonder why he doesn't call you.
Touche to the crowd. In those days, I think I got off that charge because he was talking to me while I still had the wounds from our last so I got a bit of a reprieve. I lobbied one of Dad's mates and asked him to teach me shooting and to support me getting a .22 caliber rifle. He convinced the old man and Ma that it was normal for a country kid in that area, so at 15 I ended up with a motorbike and a rifle. I used to shoot rabbits and possums. I know this might hurt a few people, but they're pests, and in those days we used to shoot them, and I sold the corpses to the school for biology lessons. One of my first entrepreneurial ventures. And then I would go into the council with a bag full of tails. The first time I did it, I was 14, I went into the council with a bag full of tails, and you got 6 .22 bullets or 2 shotgun cartridges for every tail. This kid walked out of a council building with ammunition.
Oh, how dangerous.
Yeah.
So now I'll move on to the next time that I'm prepared to admit that I got caught by the fuzz. I was out on the harbour on a small yacht.
Don't be listening to this, kids.
Yeah, not the story you told us before.
When you hear the end of the story, you might change your perspective on that. So, you know, I'm out on the harbour on the yacht trying to stop nuclear-powered and armed ships coming to New Zealand. And I managed to get our yacht between the warship and the wharf. The cops keep yelling at me, "Hester, turn that boat around!" I couldn't understand a word they said. One cop put a hank on one of the stays on our yacht, which is what holds the master, and they tried to tow us away. Complete and utter technique failure by the cops. The minute the load went on the sheet, the hank went to the top of the mast went down, boat got pooped and sunk between the warship and the wharf.
Oh, wow.
In this situation, chaos is your friend. They plucked me out of the water, handcuffed me to the deck of the Deodar, whilst trying to sort out all the chaos I had caused. Then they got me onto the deck of the Deodar, cuffed behind my back, and then I had another one of my not very bright ideas. I dived overboard without considering how hard it is to doggy paddle when your hands are cuffed behind your back. I haven't gone through that training exercise.
Yeah.
The very considerate coppers plucked me out of the tide for a second time, and then this time they handcuffed me to the safety rail on the boat. I said, "You don't have to do that. I'm not going to jump in again." But they're a bit sceptical of my position at that stage. They weren't prepared to trust me. I actually think they were having a hell of a lot of fun at the time as well. You know, they weren't doing it with criminals. You know, we were fighting a cause that we believed in, so it was a completely different dynamic.
They may have agreed with you, you just had to...
I get to that point in a sec, madam.
No interjections.
Yeah.
Hickler.
As long as they're not throwing bottles at me.
Oh, yeah.
So then they put me in the paddy wagon and took me to Auckland Central Police Station, charged me, and they charged me with, quote, obstructing a nuclear ship in the course of its passage. Famous last words. They gave me, when I was in the jail, in the Central Police Station, they processed me, And then they gave me a phone and said, okay, call your next of kin to arrange bail. I called Ma and said, sorry Ma,
Thank you,
I'm at the Central Police Station. I've been arrested out on the water. Ma replied, I watched it on TV. I've been expecting this call. I'll come and get you.
Proud as punch.
Yeah. Yeah. The son's on the news.
So Ma arrived at the Central Police Station, signed my bail forms, and they brought me out of the cells, handcuffed to shame me
Oh boy.
in front of my mum. But it didn't work. The first words Ma said to me was, son, we're so proud of you.
Yeah.
Rock that, mama.
Yeah. Nice.
Elizabeth.
Nice.
As we went to leave the police station, Ma and me are walking out, you know, when they let you out the criminal exit stuff, you know. And
We're not quite as familiar here.
that's why I'm trying to keep them all up to speed. So this cop said, he said, Kev, he didn't say Kevin, he said, Kev, come with me. I'll take you down to your boat. We've pumped the boat out, we've refloated it, we've got all your flotsam and jetsam that's been floating around the harbour, and we put it all in it. And he said, we'll tow you to your berth. And then as we were driving from Central Police Station down to the wharf, the cop said, you know that lots of us support what you're doing. I'll never forget the beaming pride that Mum showed hearing that. It was her first day in a police car as well. Through those anti-nuclear days and sailing, the two combined, I became friends with Peter Williams, Queen's Counsel. Probably New Zealand's most famous defence lawyer, renowned around the world as one of the great defence lawyers. And he used to give us training exercises for us young activists to not alienate. He said, the police aren't your enemy. And he also said, you can't win an argument with the cop, but you can with the judge. So he said, when it comes to dealing with police, shut up. And then argue your point when you get to court. Pete Williams took a boat to Mururoa and protested against, Queen's Counsel protested against, he did exactly what I did. Yeah, as much fair. So of course, after all that, I have to face the charges in the court. The prosecutor, they read out the charge, obstructing a nuclear ship in the course of its passage. And the prosecutor said to me, how do you plead? And I replied, I don't have to plead, Your Honour. Show me where in the New Zealand law statutes books there's a law that says Hester can't protest against nuclear powered ships. And the judge had smiley eyes, which they're not supposed to do. They're not supposed to be amused in court. So after that question from the prosecution, I replied, I don't have to plead, Your Honour. Show me where these charges are. And I kid you not, the judge turned and looked at the prosecutor and said, good point, show him. Then, the prosecutor, he'd obviously seen the flaw in the charge, and he said to the judge, we want to amend the charge to common obstruction. And it's a much less lower penalty, you know, so I wasn't going to get anything like the trouble. And the judge addressed me and he said, how do you feel about that change? And I replied, there's nothing common about what I did. And like that, he said, case dismissed.
Wow.
Point of the story is, fight for your rights, but the police are not the enemy. You still got to fight for your rights, for whatever you believe in. If you believe in something, fight for it. But the cops are not our enemy. Don't fall into that trap if you're going to start a revolution like I've been planning. And I'll leave it at that.
Nice one, bro. Well said.
Awesome writing, awesome presentation.
Yeah, that's really
Oh my god, that's just a tiny portion of the
Yeah.
No, I just think it's good for you people to hear. Wait, I was naughty, but I wasn't bad. There's a difference between that. You're allowed to be naughty, but you're not allowed to be bad. Is that okay? Is that
Yeah.
You hear that?
We almost didn't have a great day.
And next up is Caro. Let's go, Caro.